So this is my 1M Replica, and from the front it's looking pretty complete and pretty well sorted. So we've fitted up the 1M kit, and from the front it's got everything it needs. It's got all the grills, the M3 bonnet vents, aero catches, and it's looking pretty evil. But from the back, it turns out it's a bit of a catfish. We're missing our quad exit exhaust and our diffuser, really letting down the look of the back end of the car. And on top of that, the standard back box which comes on the 135i is sounding like an absolute hairdryer. And there is two main things I've got to fix that. One of them is a boot full of parts, and the second one, we've got a Mr. Jack McNeil.
Hello there.
You've been trying to cater to all the needs. You've been feeling guilty for so long. Maybe they're not friends, they are enemies. Won't you tell them yes when you get lost? 'Cause every time you go and ask for help.
So here is a collection of all the parts, not including the exhaust, that we're going to need to fit a quad exit on the 1M Replica. So there's two ways that we could have done this. We could have put a new exhaust on, bodged it on, cut a few things out and done it the half-arse way, or we could have done it this way, which is buying every single part that's from the 1M from BMW and fitting them to the 135. So in this collection we have a new heat shield, a new diffuser which fits the 1M bumper, a brand new boot floor, a new crash bar with two new exhaust hangers to hold that quad exit exhaust, a new battery cable, and then a bunch of other miscellaneous bits to make all of this stuff work. So it's about time we sorted out the back end on the Beamer and also sorted out the exhaust note, but as you'll see later in the video, it definitely did not all go to plan. So the first job to do before we can fit all of this stuff on the car is get the old stuff off. You ready?
Let's do it.
Let's go. So if you don't know who Jack McNeil is, he is a TikTok sensation with over 1.2 million subscribers on there, and also has a successful YouTube channel. Even if you haven't got TikTok, you probably recognise his Micra Boris. It's probably the most famous Micra in the world. Oh no!
What we're going to do is
I turned my back for 2 seconds.
I literally said, right, let's knock. How do I get it?
After 3 hours.
We finally got it.
After we'd removed the rear lights, it was time to whip the rear bumper off to give us access to all of those parts that we need to change. Hopefully now you can see why we need to remove so much stuff when we're fitting a quad exit on this car, because there is just so much stuff in the way. Once we got the crash bar cracked off, we could then turn our attention onto the exhaust, take all of those bolts off, and also spray some penetrating fluid into the rubbers to make it easier to get those off too.
Whoa! Whoa!
Okay then, hi.
It's almost gone. Go on.
I want you to drop this shit straight on the floor.
Yes! There we go. What? We're gonna have to.
No, we'll just penetrate it.
Right.
She's gonna come.
Bro, you can't even laugh. I mean...
Go on, man. I've got something dripping out of here.
She's leaking.
Come on, you got it.
We need a wiggle.
The twist method?
The twist method, mate. Oh!
I was like there.
We got it!
Got him.
Got him. Nice.
Yeah, man.
Nice. Good
What's
stuff.
that thing? So once we manhandled off the back box, it was then time to turn our attention onto the centre section, but poor little Jack, he couldn't quite manage some of these, so I had to show him how it was done.
Yeah, she's a bit stiff, boy. Yeah, that crumb.
Oh, is that your knuckles?
It's my elbow, bro.
Come on, don't tell me you need Big Chris to sort this out for you.
Bro, you can't make me laugh.
Oh, yes.
What are you going to do? You're going to include it in your video. You're going to say, Jack.
If I didn't get that off, that would never have gone in, but because I did,
Now it's
not
the video.
Next up was to disconnect the downpipes and a small brace at the front of the car too. So we did try taking that centre section off without removing this underbody brace, but it did have to come off, and once we'd swung it out of the way, it came out super easy. So for the culture, it's only right we start it with no exhaust before we take that battery off.
Right, I am going to be scared shitless.
It's going to be quiet, I reckon. I don't know where the key is. Thank you.
So Chris is about to start the Beamer, and the exhaust is right there. We've got the...
Sounds like a V8. What? What?
Give me a couple! Oh my god! Whoa, that is so loud!
Then it was time to slot off the crash bar, which had unbolted earlier, and after that we could then turn our attention onto the boot floor. So to get that out, there was quite a few things we had to disconnect first. Obviously the battery, because that sits in the boot floor. There was around 20 bolts holding the boot floor itself in from the inside, and also a lot of interior trims in the way too. So the last of it on the interior was the boot carpets on the side, so once they were out, there was one more thing we had to do underneath the car. Finally. That means now the boot floor is going to fall out. Watch this. So underneath the car there was this canister which we had to disconnect off the boot floor, which at the time we had no idea what it did, but we had to unbolt it to transfer it to the new one.
What is that? She's out.
Can you catch?
Can I catch?
By the way you stare, the way you wait for me, yeah. Man, I felt sure.
So that was all of the removing parts that we needed to do, and now we could start looking at reassembling the car.
Friendly, yeah. But something went wrong. The signals got crossed, and now we're on completely different pages.
I've never had to remove so many parts off a car before in order to fit an exhaust, but it seems a bit excessive, I know, but I promise you it seemed like also the best way to do it.
Don't you stress the flow. You're trying to pick the pace up. We should take it slow. Baby, keep your focus. Don't you make me change my mind. If you love me.
So with the new boot floor now bolted in, we could start looking at the new battery cables. Because this new floor actually moves the battery slightly, the cables are slightly different and do need to be changed in order to work.
Baby, don't you, baby, don't you, baby, don't you switch up the vibe.
Right, so quick update. The battery is in, although we're not able to connect it to its mounting point there, because basically we haven't got a longer earth wire, and that earth wire is pretty stretched to that terminal, so we can't move the battery anymore this way. So basically it's going to have to sit like that, and we're also going to have to stretch this red wire as well, because that red wire needs to sit in there and it doesn't quite reach. So yeah, we've got a little bit of botching to do. It's not going to be the prettiest. However,
I just want to make clear as well, this is all temporary. I've got these parts on back order, but they're just not here yet. They're going to be about 2 weeks, and I wanted to get this exhaust on, so I know you guys are dying to see it, and I'm dying to hear it. So.
Exactly, I mean, as am I.
And look, we're going to make this safe. We can fill it full of socks.
It's going to fit.
Out. Just something like that, yeah. It's going to be sound.
It's going to be sick.
So then it was back underneath the car to reconnect the battery cables on the underside of the boot floor, and then we could start looking at the canister. That's that good 99, that's expensive stuff.
That's 99 octane, mate.
99. So I may be wrong, but I believe this is a fuel vapor filter, which I believe essentially just takes away the smell from the fuel vapors, I think, anyway. And it was at this point we realised not everything always goes to plan. Turns out that all of those parts that I bought ain't necessarily right. So BMW and that list maybe weren't the best thing to go with, because some of these hoses, even with the new ones on, don't fit on this little canister, and even if they did, routing them is just going to be a nightmare. I think it's got to go over the top of this like rear subframe and over the top of the fuel tank. It's just going to be a nightmare job. So what we're going to do is just make these ones work instead. It just seems like the better way.
Bit of a botch.
Bit of a botch.
Switch up the vibe.
So the list of parts that I thought I was going to need, which I found on the internet, it turns out wasn't 100% accurate, and also as well, it wasn't going to be the easiest way to do it, so we had to find an alternative way.
Just like you say you do.
So we've got our old one in. This is the most complicated one because this one is too short, the other ones were too long, so we could just cut those down, but this one needs to be lengthened, and it's not easy to make up a few inches, as we all know. So what we're going to have to do is clip this one in. We've got this 1/4 inch fitting threaded into here. Then we're going to have to make an extension hose from here into the old piece of pipe here, which is then going to have one of these threaded into too. But the only downside, the only bit I'm not 100% happy about is how we're going to have to do it, because it'd be really nice to have like a right angle, but I think we're going to have to make a loop and just hope it works, basically.
You, baby, don't.
So it's not the most crucial piece of equipment on the car, so lengthening these pipes isn't going to cause any issues at all, but even though it's not the prettiest, it will definitely work.
Close to you, close to you. You said hello.
Once we'd done that, it was time for the heat shield, which luckily bolted straight up to the car.
You do to me what I've seen in the movies, but this really happening. My mind explodes. I can feel my body
Then it was on with the crash bar and even the new crash bar gasket,
and over,
which was most definitely accurately torqued to spec.
but I'm
And there was one part which we could reuse from the car before, which was the exhaust rubbers, so we slot those back on, and it seems like we're making some progress.
So we now have the BMW en route to being reassembled. So we've got a new boot flooring, that new fuel system ventilation can thing all plumbed up. We've got the new crash bar on, this new heat shielding on, so I think now it's ready for some pipe work.
close to you, close to you, close to you. Close to you, close to you, close to you.
So what I have managed to pick up here is a cat back Miltech exhaust for a BMW 1M. And I managed to pick this up because one of our subscribers dropped me a message on Instagram, which is down here, and they messaged me saying, I've got an exhaust for a BMW 1M, do you want it? And it turns out it was a Miltech, and the reason why I think this is special is because there wasn't that many 1Ms made in the first place, so how many Miltechs is there going to be for a 1M? It can't be that many, so this has got to be a pretty rare thing in a way. And the reason why I managed to pick this up is because the bloke that I got it off on his genuine 1M, he said it was a bit too noisy, and I'll be honest with you, mine's already got sports cats on it, so it may be even worse than what his was, but I suppose there's only one way to find out. Let's get it on.
Close to you, close to you, close to you.
So the first thing we tried doing here was putting it together as the midsection as one complete unit. Then we realised we got it the wrong way around, so we tried putting it on another way, then the end pipe wouldn't go on, so we had to try a few things to make this work.
Close to you, close to you.
And to be honest, at this point we were questioning whether it was even going to fit at all.
Surface, I don't know what I will do. 'Cause
So we've just had about an hour's graft trying to get this section of the exhaust on. It did not want to go on right by just bolting on this kind of rear section of the exhaust. We had to put it on with this section which couples all of those together, put it on this hanger and then bolt it up on this end, which was a bit of a fight, but the only problem now is that this hanger's sitting a little bit funny and a little bit close to the diff. So I'm hoping that when I put the back box on, it moves that over a bit, makes everything sit happier, and it all comes together beautiful. Look at the state of your face.
Bro,
You've
that
just
was a
done that.
shift, mate.
You see the state of yourself?
What?
You're not even up a chimney.
Do I? Wait, that was a shift.
I can't believe my eyes.
Hopefully this next part is a little bit easier, fitting the back box. There's only one way that this can go on, so we pushed it into place, greased up the rubbers, slotted those on, and thank God it played ball.
Close to you.
You can see we were pretty happy about that, but there was one more job, which was to tighten up all of the exhaust clamps underneath the car.
So we now have the exhaust on and bolted up and tight, and everything is exactly where it should be. So we're on the final, the home stretch where we can start reassembling all the last things. We've got the new diffuser to go on, the new bumper, and then it's going to be looking complete at the rear end, and then we can hear how it's going to sound. I'm absolutely buzzing.
I can't wait, mate. I'm gassed.
I'm so tired.
I'm gassed, mate. I'm not tired.
So we didn't want to spoil the job for ourselves and give ourselves the treat before the job was done, so we wanted to reassemble the whole car before we started it. So the next job was to mount the diffuser on the rear bumper, which could then be mounted back on the car. And I think you can tell by the looks on our faces, it'd been a pretty long day by this point. But we were now on the final hurdles, getting the rear bumper back on the car, getting those rear lights back in, and all those finishing touches before we can start the car. And luckily the diffuser did fit properly, and also everything pretty much fell back together by this point, and there was no dropped bolts this time either.
And we are done. So the only thing left to do is start it. And to be honest with you, I'm a little bit nervous. So Jack, I think you need to start it, mate.
Can we start it?
You need to start it. Right. It's gonna have cold start, isn't it? So it's gonna be a bit louder at first. Go on.
It's gonna be a bit loud. Right, you ready?
Go for it.
Oh my god, mate! That is so loud.
That's alright. That's alright.
I don't want to do it too much, it's cold.
That sounds alright. It's smoky.
That is loud, bro.
Leave one idle. Leave one idle a second. It could get quieter. That sounds alright though. Sounds good. I'm quite happy.
Really good. That sounds unreal. I'm sick, bro. Come on. Mate, it sounds so good.
Nice, yeah. It's fucking loud.
That is a job well done, mate. Mate, it has smoked out this whole room.
It's good.
It's good though, yeah.
So in the last video, we painted my BMW 1M replica in purple silk paint, which is a BMW colour, but there's a few bits which we left, and today we're going to be sorting that out. So I personally absolutely love this colour, and I know the majority of you guys do now too, but it needs a little bit of contrast, I think, to make it work on the car. So we've already added this nice carbon fibre spoiler, and also on the inside we've got our carbon fibre steering wheel, so it's only right we do it to the roof too. But before we can do that, we need to wash the car, so let's do that quickly. So some of you predicted in the last video that I was going to be doing a carbon roof on the 135i, and you guys are completely wrong. That's because, to be honest with you, I can't afford it, I don't think it's worth doing, and to be honest with you, I'd just be doing it for the look. And that's why we're going to be fitting this. This is carbon fibre PPF, not a wrap, it's carbon fibre PPF. Callum, can you explain to us why that's better?
So carbon PPF is better than regular carbon vinyl because carbon PPF is essentially carbon vinyl with PPF on top of it, so you get the depth.
It's got a protective layer on there as well.
Exactly, yeah. It's got the self-healing protective layer, and it's essentially like a clear coat on top, so you get the depth.
Sounds good to me.
Perfect.
Should we do it?
Let's crack on.
Let's do it!
So as nice as it would have been to have a real carbon roof or a carbon skinned roof on this car, it just seems a little bit wasteful to me when there's a product like this on the market which does it very, very nearly as well.
So we have a pre-cut for the roof on the 1 Series, meaning we don't have to do any trimming, it should just be straight application, but it does go on slightly differently to a wrap because we put it on wet, more like a window tint I think, than a normal wrap, so let's see how it goes.
So once we were happy we had the carbon PPF positioned properly on the roof, it was then time to squeegee out the water and get it looking smooth. I'm not 100% sure the camera fully does this justice because in the flesh you can hardly tell the difference. Once all the water was squeegeed out, the edges were tucked and trimmed where needed, and heated, the roof was more or less done.
So my BMW now has a carbon roof, sort of. I know some of you ain't gonna like this because it's not real carbon, but honestly, it looks the part and it's gonna stay looking the part. There's gonna be no issues with chipping, delamination, and it's always gonna be swirl free because it's got that PPF top coat. And to be honest with you, in the flesh, it's 95% as good as the real deal, so I'm well happy with that. Now there is a few bits of settling which we're going to get, just like with window tints. The moisture from underneath has got to evaporate out, and that'll take a few days to do so, but even considering that, it's still looking good. I think the contrast on the purple to the carbon bits looks absolutely sick, and to be honest with you, this part's real carbon, this part is the fake stuff, and here to here, honestly, you can hardly tell the difference.
So whilst we were there, the guys at New Look Detailing kindly offered to PPF the headlights with this slate PPF, which gives the car a much stealthier look while still protecting those headlights too, so it's a win-win situation. And how much better does that look? Not only does it add clarity, but it also adds protection too. So what more can you want? So this is usually where I would finish this video off, saying about how fantastic it's been, and we've managed to get loads done, which we have, but unfortunately we have had a bit of a negative ending. So I've known for a little while about this problem, but it just seems like putting this exhaust on and leaving it ticking over for such a long amount of time just to let it come up to temperature has completely took its toll on the turbos. So as you can see, it is not looking good, Brev. These turbos, well, I'm 99% sure it's the turbos anyway, are gone. At least definitely one of them. And to be honest with you, this is probably going to be the last time I drive it until I can sort that problem, because it's obviously not going to be good for the car, but I wanted to show you guys exactly what the problem was. On the plus side, I suppose, it's at least another video with the 1M Replica, and while we're there, I think we should probably upgrade it anyway, but I'm not sure yet. On the whole, again, I think we've had another successful video. I know there's been 2 steps forward and 1 back, but we have definitely made some progress, and the back end is looking so much better. I would like to try and get the exhaust tips to sit in a little bit more. They poke out a little bit too much for my liking anyway, and I know all of you guys are hounding me about changing these rear lights, and I'm on it. I promise you I'm on it. And as much as I would like to finish this exhaust video off on a high note by hooning it up and down the road, letting you hear it properly, I don't think it's the best idea for my car, so we'll have to again save that for another video. But I promise you, the mic on this camera and on whatever else doesn't do it justice. In person it does sound really, really good, but I have listened back to some footage and it's definitely not done justice. And I do want to thank everyone who has helped me out in this video and helped me make stuff happen on the 1 series. All the links for their channels are going to be in the description, but that is it for this time. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you in the next video.